You want to be a screenwriter, and you might have wondered at some point whether or not you should go to film school. And if you think you should, well, which one should you go to? Well, the short answer is, it depends. But I'm going to give you 5 criteria to help you decide if you should go to film school or not. And be sure to stick around to the end because I do have an important announcement to share with you. Okay, 5 criteria. Here we go. Criteria number 1, filmmaking experience. You know, one of the benefits of film school is learning about and participating in the filmmaking process. And this is a level of distinction that you can make between good screenwriting programs and bad ones. The good ones, they provide you several opportunities to participate in the filmmaking process. They give you those opportunities. Some full disclosure here right off the bat, I did go to grad school at USC's School of Cinematic Arts, and I went for screenwriting. I've also taught filmmaking at a university and helped rewrite their entire production degree. And there is one thing that is consistent across Hollywood and the good film schools. Successful people know what other successful people do on a film. The reason for this is a film is a collaborative medium, and you have to know how your work impacts everyone else on set, or whether it impacts them or not, because it may not. And there are a few roles that impact everyone, or their role is impacted by everyone. And the screenwriter is one of those roles that impacts nearly everyone on a set. And you need to know what other people do so you can help them do their job better. Being a screenwriter isn't just about learning the craft of screenwriting. I mean, that's very important, of course, but it's not just that. The craft of screenwriting is about helping everyone else see and implement the vision and the story that you are casting forth. I mean, the director and other key people add in their take to enhance the story for sure. And everyone who works on a film, no matter how bad or good the film ends up being, everyone who's working on it wants it to be great. And you, the screenwriter, have to know what other people do. And one of the best ways for you to know what other people do is for you to actually do it. And if you know what they do, you know how to honor them and respect them and not get in their lane in the screenwriting process. And good film schools know this. So even if you're planning to get a degree in screenwriting, which sounds like you'll just be writing, if you never learn to create storyboards or hold a boom mic or mess with settings on a camera, you don't know what a gray card is, you don't even know what the process is for capturing a take, you don't know how to manage media or what nonlinear editing software can even do, or how to basic color grade, okay, you aren't getting the education that you really should be getting. Because when you know what those other jobs entail, it helps you become a better writer. More importantly, learning what everyone else does helps you know what you don't need to include in your script and what you do need to include in your script, because both can be just as important. So the way you learn that is by doing those other jobs. It can be very helpful and will help you become a better screenwriter faster. So if you're deciding whether to go to film school, okay, if you don't currently have the opportunity to shoot things yourself or find opportunities to be on actual working sets, even if it's a student production, okay, if you don't have those opportunities available to you, well, you might want to seriously consider going to film school. However, if you're trying to decide which film school to go to, you should favor the ones who give you opportunities to take classes in things like directing and producing and editing, even visual effects or sound design, even if you're going just for a screenwriting degree. And if you go to that school, take advantage of those opportunities to learn what other people do. You might even find something else you're interested in doing in addition to screenwriting. There's a lot of screenwriters that do other things or that break in by doing other things on a set. So learning how a set works, learning what everybody does can massively up your screenwriting game. Should you go to film school? Criteria number 2, accessibility and opportunity. Now, this is more of a practical criteria. I mean, can you physically go? Like, can you literally move from where you're at and go to film school if it's not local to you? I mean, when I was considering which film school to go to, my wife and I had a conversation and she said, I just can't live in New York. Now, it's not for any other reason than, we just had some small children. That wasn't what she envisioned for our family. She wanted a house and a yard and nature. So I lopped off all the New York schools I had on my potential list just because that wasn't going to work for our family. That was not available to me. And because of the life stage that I was at, it was feasible at the time for us to make the move. Our kids were all small, they weren't really in school, and other circumstances made it feasible for us to move. It was an opportunity that was available to me at that time. So I took it. Had that been a couple years sooner or a couple years later, I wouldn't have necessarily had the same opportunity. So opportunity is an important part. But I know some of you just don't have that opportunity. Or even if you choose to do it, it would be very difficult for you to do so. So that's not to say you can't do it. It's just you have to realize that that's definitely going to be a challenge for you. At the same time, maybe film school isn't accessible to you. I mean, maybe you have the opportunity, you have the time to commit to it, but you just physically can't move. You physically can't get there. Or there's not a film school that's close to you. So if you went, it's going to just require a huge commitment. And I want to insert something right here because we're talking about criteria for whether or not you should go to film school. We are not talking about whether or not you have to go to film school because you don't have to go, especially in today's world. And when I was considering film school, YouTube was literally 2 years old. I think it was like a year and a half old when I was actually thinking about it. And I wasn't really a huge thing about learning on YouTube. It mostly consisted of entertainment videos and cat videos at the time. But now there are lots of opportunities for you to learn and watch interviews with filmmakers and screenwriters, learn about screenwriting and filmmaking, and loads of behind the scenes stuff that I just didn't have available to me. Plus, there's way more books about the craft of screenwriting now than there were when I started. On top of that, there are online classes in universities or workshops or coaching programs, all kinds of things that you can participate in to learn and hone the craft. So the opportunities that you have available to you are a lot more than what I had available to me when I was considering film school. I had read pretty much all the books that were available at the time, and I had gone as far as I could go on my own. I knew I needed feedback and interaction about my writing with others who knew the craft and who would give me honest feedback. I mean, there were stories that I wanted to tell that were important to me, but I didn't know how to tell them and I needed help. And I promised myself that when I was in a position to help teach others and make it easier for them to learn the craft, I would. And that's one reason I created this YouTube channel. It's also what's at the core of my screenwriting course, the Screenwriting Fast Track, which contains the tools of story and storytelling that you need to know. Okay, I took all the information I've learned about beginning the craft, all my experience teaching new and intermediate screenwriters, and I poured it into that massive class, which is essentially a first semester graduate level screenwriting course that you can work through at your own pace. And you can choose how much feedback you want from me along the way if that interests you. So if you're interested, check out the Screenwriting Fast Track. A link is below. But I created that course because of what I didn't have that I wanted you to have. But maybe, just maybe, you have the opportunity to go to film school. And if you do have that available to you, that definitely swings this criteria in favor of going. Because if you're able to go, you have the opportunity to go, okay, that makes it a little more favorable for you. Criteria number 3, do you need a degree for professional goals? Now, it takes a long time to make it as a screenwriter. The average is around 10 years, but it can easily take longer. There's no guarantee that you're going to make it. Even if you get a screenwriting degree from USC or UCLA or AFI, I mean, there's no guarantee. But maybe you have some other professional goals. You know, here in the US, if you want any type of higher paying job, you kind of have to do one of two things. You either go to a trade school and learn a craft to do something specific, like plumbing or electrical work, woodworking, technology networking, all those kinds of things, or you have to go to a college and at least hold a 4-year degree. So even if you don't make it as a screenwriter, the degree you earn will help you be able to get a related job in the film industry, either at a studio, production company, something like that. And good film schools also have robust internship programs and assistantships that can help you get access to the industry and to people in the industry. For me, I knew that at some point I wanted to teach screenwriting at a university. But to teach at a university, you really need to have a terminal degree in your field. And a terminal degree in the creative arts is an MFA, a Master of Fine Arts. If you get a terminal degree in a research-based field, like film studies, for example, that would require a PhD or Doctor of Philosophy degree. I wanted to learn screenwriting, but I also ultimately wanted to teach screenwriting. So I went looking for a graduate program to earn the degree that I needed to not only help me learn the craft of screenwriting, but also to give me opportunities to teach screenwriting at a university level. And if the right opportunity came along, I'd probably teach at a university again. I'm not doing that right now, but if the right opportunity came along, I'd probably do that because I just love teaching. I love helping screenwriters learn the craft that I just love so much. But if you're considering film school, you need to do a deep reflection on whether you would be able to use that degree for something in addition to learning the craft. If you're getting a screenwriting degree just to get a screenwriting degree and learn the craft, okay, there's more cost-effective ways to learn what you need. And I'd probably argue that there's some better ways to learn what you need than by going to film school, if that's all you're wanting to do. But if you need a degree for some professional goals other than seeing your name on the big screen, okay, yes, consider going to film school. If not, film school may not be the right call for you, in part because of the next criteria. Criteria number 4, cost. Not just money, by the way, but time. And the cost is going against the relationships gained while in school. So there's kind of a trade-off on this one. There's cost and time, but there's relationships gained. Simply, film school is expensive. I'm still paying on my student loans. I probably will be until I sell a screenplay that has a lot of zeros at the end of that check. So if you think going to film school and graduating, you're just suddenly going to make it, okay, you're gravely mistaken. That's just not the case. You'll have some massive student debt to pay off unless you just have loads of money, which most writers don't have. Otherwise, they'd be writer producers. So if you want to go to film school, you need to know that there's going to be some costs attached. And if it's a good film school where you are filming and making stuff in addition to writing, okay, you're going to be helping contribute to the costs of production for those student films. Smaller schools or schools that aren't as good as I've described them, they're going to be cheaper. They may be more cost effective, but realize you are trading some of the filmmaking experiences for a cheaper degree that may not be as valuable as one from a better and more expensive school. The other factor at play for cost is the time involved. If you're getting a 4-year degree, well, 4 years plus expenses. If you're looking for a graduate degree, then you're looking at 2 to 3 years depending on the school and the program you participate in. On the upside, going to film school gives you tons of opportunities for relationships with other talented storytellers. At the good schools, you'll become friends with students who want to be directors and cinematographers, composers, producers, set designers, the list goes on. Plus all the screenwriters that you're going to get to meet. Just in my graduating class from USC, 3 of my classmates are showrunners on TV shows. About 4 or 5 others are on writing staffs. Some have had features made. I have classmates working at every major studio, and not everyone that graduated with me still works in the film industry. There's teachers, journalists, novelists, and we're spread all over everywhere. And that was just from my graduating class of 30 people at USC several years ago. So if you're going to a grad school of some kind, those students are heavily motivated and you will interact with them regularly, not just in school, but after. And they're going to help you become better and you will help them become better. So yes, it's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you time. But film school can also introduce you to people who will be lifelong friends and who love the craft of screenwriting and storytelling just as much as you do. And this gets us to criteria number 5 when considering if you should go to film school. Number 5, will you have the opportunities to learn from people who know what they're doing? Okay, and this includes feedback giving, so you're giving feedback and getting feedback. One reason some film schools are better than others is because of the faculty and staff. Now, that doesn't mean that all of them have had hit TV shows or movies. It's actually probably a bad thing if every faculty member is like that. Why, you ask? Well, because a lot of screenwriters are great at screenwriting and not so great at teaching screenwriting. So you need faculty who are good teachers and faculty who have had some recognizable success. More than that, you want the classes to be more of a workshop style than a lecture style. You have to learn how to receive notes and you have to learn how to give notes. Now, lecture style classes, they don't teach you this. You want classes where students have to bring in work regularly, where that work is talked about, pulled apart, put back together, what's working, what isn't, and where you are contributing to that process, whether it's your own work or your classmates. And you become a much better writer as soon as you are forced to give feedback on the work of others. It doesn't matter if it's an outline, a scene, or a whole script. You have to learn how to give notes, and you have to learn how to receive notes. So before you commit to going to any film school, make sure the classes where students create things are more workshop-based, where you're learning not only from the faculty and staff, but also from your fellow students. What's the final verdict with should you go to film school or not? Well, ultimately, film school isn't for everyone, especially in today's world. So if you don't have any opportunity to make your own films, if you are in a position where you could feasibly attend film school, if the degree you'd pursue will help you whether or not you make it as a screenwriter, if the costs and benefits are acceptable to you, and if you have opportunities to learn from not only other faculty but also your peers, and you can learn to give and receive feedback. Okay, if you're hitting all 5 of those, then definitely consider film school. For me, I loved my time at film school, and I cherish the friendships and experiences I had while I was there. I didn't have the opportunity to make my own stuff before I went to film school, at least not in any professional manner. My life circumstances before I went to film school, they made it possible for me to go. And I knew the degree would benefit me beyond just the screenwriting itself. The costs and benefits were worth it. Even though I'm still paying for it, I learned what I needed to learn. The relationships were of benefit to me. So for me, it was worth it. And I would tell myself that I should go again if I had it to do all over again. I don't regret my decision at all. But again, film school isn't for everyone. There is no one asking to see your degree in Hollywood. Nobody cares. It's all about what you can do. So if you have a degree, it doesn't mean that your script's going to suddenly get bought and greenlit. That's just not the reality. That's not how it works. And I can't iterate this enough. It is expensive, especially good schools. You will pay 6 figures for a degree from a good film school. And if you are okay with that, then great. But you got to be okay with it. I mean, the thing is, you have to learn this stuff somewhere, though. So there are things that you just can't learn on your own. You'll hear a lot of people talk about, oh, you shouldn't go to film school, you can learn everything on your own. No, you can't. You have to learn how to give and receive notes, for one, which is a huge one. You can't do that if you're not working with anybody, if you're not around other screenwriters. So if you're trying to decide on a film school, but the criteria I've outlined for you aren't lining up, okay, that's fine. You just may want to consider other options. Yes, I have some on Big Red Stripe's learning portal. I mentioned earlier the Screenwriting Fast Track, but there's other one-off classes you can take, not just mine. I mean, the Screenwriting Fast Track, yeah, it's the class I wish I would have had when I was starting out. A first semester graduate level writing course. So if you're a new or intermediate writer, that might be a great option for you, at least a place to start. If you want a more robust experience, kind of a film school in a box kind of a thing, then you should consider my coaching program, the Screenplay Navigator. I mean, the only thing we don't do is shoot films. Although I taught film production, I'd be happy to chat with you if you had any questions and wanted to shoot something. But as part of the Screenplay Navigator, you get access to the Screenwriting Fast Track. And we have twice-a-month calls where you write material, where it's shared with other students, where you get feedback from them, where you give feedback to them on their stuff, where you get feedback from me, plus a bunch of other resources, and at a fraction of the cost of a screenwriting degree. And you can work at your own pace. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, click on the Screenplay Navigator link below, learn more information, book a free call with me, we'll chat, we'll figure out if it's a good option for you. I'd love to chat with you if you're interested in that. So if you're interested in film school, but the criteria I've listed just isn't lining up for you, you still have some options. But again, at some point, there are things that you're gonna have to learn, and you have to do it in community. So whether you're learning with me or not, if you are serious about the craft of screenwriting, at some point, you're gonna have to put in some dedicated time to improving the craft. All right, the important announcement I promised at the beginning. I recently experimented on this channel with something I called the One Scene Challenge, where viewers could submit a scene, and I chose one and reworked that scene as a video, which I'll link here. But the overwhelming feedback was, please do this again. So I am. This time though, the One Scene Challenge is focusing on the first scenes of your script. They must be a page or less, submitted as a PDF. You can submit them to ask@bigredstripe.com. Anything longer than a page will not be accepted. Okay, so it's gotta be 1 page or less. It should also be the first scene of a screenplay or TV pilot that you're working on. Anyone can submit a scene. I'll choose one. I'll talk about what's working, what isn't, and revise it as part of a future video. The deadline for submission to this next One Scene Challenge is midnight tomorrow. That's Friday, November 5th, 2021. So midnight Pacific time. I'm in LA, so I'm going by Pacific time. So midnight, Friday, November 5th. If you're interested in that, be sure to keep your submission of one scene, one page, first scene of your script as a PDF. Get it to me by midnight tomorrow night, Friday, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you all submit. Ultimately, I want to help you become a better writer and storyteller. And if you found any value and you haven't already, please be sure to like, subscribe, bell, all of that. I really do appreciate it. If you want to share this video or others on my channel on social media, that also really helps others find this channel, and it really does help support me. So whether or not you end up going to film school, whether or not you're going to go, when you tell a story, be sure to tell a story that matters. See you later.